In the dim light of dusk, the city of Tampa buzzed with the hum of air conditioners and distant traffic. The summer heat hung heavy in the air as Daniel Mercer, a mid-level executive from Chicago, checked into the Riverside Heritage Hotel, a weathered building from the 1940s that tried to hide its age behind modern signage and artificial lobby smiles. He wasn't supposed to be there. Originally booked at a Marriott near the convention center, a last-minute plumbing issue had overbooked the hotel, and the concierge arranged this one as a quiet alternative. It wasn't what Daniel wanted, but he was too tired to argue. The hotel clerk, a nervous-looking man with a loose tie, handed him an old brass key. "You'll be in room 306, Mr. Mercer. Elevator's acting up, so 3 flights of stairs." Room 306 was at the far end of the third-floor hallway, past flickering lights and wallpaper that peeled at the edges like dried skin. As he opened the door, a strange chill greeted him. Odd, considering the hallway was sweltering. Inside, the room was dim, the blinds drawn. An old box fan whirred on the dresser. Daniel tossed his bag on the bed and noticed something peculiar almost immediately. The bed was made, but uneven. One corner of the sheet had been tucked with unusual care, like someone trying too hard to make it look untouched. Curiosity got the better of him, the better. He pulled the sheet back and crouched to check under the bed. That's when he saw it, a black leather briefcase, aged and scuffed, wedged tightly against the far wall. No tags, no lock, just a dull brass clasp slightly open. He hesitated, then pulled it out and clicked it open. Inside was a stack of papers, official-looking, yellowed. Many pages were stamped, classified in red. The first document read, Project Northwoods, Revised Directive 2003. Confidential, United States Department of Defense, prepared for internal military use. Only, summary, strategic simulation plans including targeted civilian incidents to provoke. Public support for overseas intervention includes simulated mass casualty scenarios on U.S. soil. Daniel blinked. He flipped through page after page, maps, diagrams, coded communications, references to flight hijackings, false flag bombings, media manipulation, each section more horrifying than the last. He slammed the briefcase shut. What the hell was this? A prank? A movie prop? Suddenly, the box fan on the dresser stopped. Silence. Daniel looked up at the TV. It turned on by itself. Just static. He reached for the remote, but before he could press anything, the channel changed. A faint voice crackled through the noise. Male, repeating the same phrase. "You were not supposed to see this. You were not supposed to see this. You were not supposed to see this." Then, silence again. Daniel pulled the power cord. From the wall, heart pounding. The room returned to its normal stillness, but now the shadows seemed deeper, closer. At the end of the hallway, outside room 306, the hotel's old security camera quietly rotated, watching, recording. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He tried to convince himself it was just a weird coincidence. A prop someone left behind, maybe a viral marketing stunt for some political thriller. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw those words, Project Northwoods, Revised Directive 2003, Simulated Mass Casualty Scenarios on U.S. Soil. At 5:17 a.m., he left the room without even brushing his teeth. The hotel lobby was empty except for the same clerk from the night before, who looked different. His expression blank, staring at Daniel like he recognized him from a dream or a warning. "Check out?" he asked in a monotone voice, without breaking eye contact. Daniel nodded. The clerk didn't type anything. He didn't even look at the computer, just handed Daniel a receipt that already had his signature on it. Back in his rental car, Daniel checked the receipt again. No room number, no address, no hotel name, just a barcode. It didn't scan. Later that morning, Daniel arrived at the a tech conference he was supposed to attend. His badge was missing from the registration table. The woman behind the desk frowned. "Are you sure you registered, sir?" "I have the confirmation email." But the email was gone. Vanished. No trace in his inbox or deleted folder. He pulled out his phone to show her his hotel reservation, proof he was even in Tampa. But the phone screen flickered, froze, then rebooted itself. Twice. By now, a man in a dark suit was watching him from a corner of the lobby. Daniel noticed. He looked again. The man was gone. He left the convention center early. That night, back at a different hotel near the airport, Daniel noticed a gray sedan parked across the street. It had tinted windows, engine running. It stayed there for 2 hours. At 11:08 p.m., his room phone rang. He answered. No voice, just breathing. He hung up, the briefcase. He still had it, shoved into his suitcase in a panic. He'd meant to leave it behind, but something had made him take it. Something deep in his gut. He opened it again, just to make sure it was real. This time, something had been added, a small cassette tape, unmarked, sitting on top of the papers. He didn't own a cassette player. The next morning, he visited a pawn shop near his hotel and bought one for $10. When he played the tape back in the car, a distorted voice, barely audible, crackled through. "If you're hearing this, they know. They always know. Don't trust your phone. Don't trust your memory. And whatever you do, don't try to. Go home." At that exact moment, Daniel looked into his rearview mirror. The gray sedan was back, and this time it wasn't parked. It was following him. Daniel didn't drive to the airport. He knew better. The sedan had been behind him for over 20 minutes now, never speeding, never honking, just matching his every turn like a ghost. When he finally pulled into a crowded supermarket parking lot, the gray car parked 4 rows behind him. He didn't go inside. He walked casually between cars, then ducked behind a delivery van and sprinted out the side entrance. He ran 3 blocks, caught a cab, and told the driver to take him somewhere. "Busy?" The cabbie nodded, unfazed. Downtown Tampa was alive with heat and tourists. Daniel melted into the crowd, took refuge inside a bookstore cafe, and connected to the Wi-Fi. His hands shook as he opened his email. Empty. Not just no recent messages. Everything was gone. Contacts, photos, saved files, all wiped. He called. His office. No answer. Called again. Still nothing. He tried calling his brother in Boston. The number wasn't in service. That was impossible. When he asked the barista if he could borrow a pen, she hesitated. "Sure," she said slowly, almost nervously, "but I think someone left this for you." She reached under the counter and handed him a plain envelope with his name written in neat block letters. He opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It showed him asleep, inside his hotel room from 2 nights ago. The same room where he found the briefcase. The photo had been taken from inside the room. Daniel stumbled back, bile rising in his throat. He didn't remember anyone being there, didn't remember falling asleep, didn't even remember getting into bed that night, but the photo proved otherwise. That evening, he checked into a cheap roadside motel under a fake name. He ditched his phone in a trash can and paid in cash. The motel room was small and smelled of mildew. He pushed a chair against the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and laid out everything he had. The briefcase, the tape recorder, the photo, and a few pages of notes he'd scribbled in his notebook. He began to read more of the documents. One labeled Phase 3, Domestic Perception Management, included chilling language, civilian memory alteration trials successful at Site 04. Recommend full deployment contingent on long-term amnesia rates above 72%. Another had photographs, black and white surveillance stills of unidentified individuals being dragged into unmarked vans. All their faces blurred, all taken at different points in time, but always with the same van. The same 2 agents in grey suits, And then a photo of Daniel, not blurred, dated 3 days ago. He didn't sleep that night, but sometime before dawn, he passed out, sitting up, clutching the tape recorder in one hand and the photo in the other. When he woke up, the briefcase was gone. The notes were gone. The tape recorder was gone. Only the photo remained, burnt at the edges, like someone had tried to destroy it. And outside, once again, the grey sedan was waiting. Daniel didn't run this time. He walked calmly to the grey sedan, feeling as though he was stepping outside of time. The windows were tinted black. He knocked once on the driver's side window. Nothing. He knocked again, harder. The window rolled down just enough to reveal a camera lens, small, circular, blinking red. A mechanical voice spoke, emotionless. "Do you remember room 119, Mr. Langston?" Daniel stepped back, the breath caught in his throat. He had never told anyone about room 119. It was 2003, a routine federal consulting gig at Langley. They'd told him it was for a psychological aptitude study, a controlled experiment. Just a few hours, some basic memory and stress tests. He had walked into room 119 and hadn't been the same since. He remembered lights, too bright. A constant sound, like a heartbeat underwater. Men in lab coats asking the same questions over and over. Time collapsed in that room. When he left, 12 hours had passed, though he swore he was only inside for 2. They never contacted him again. He had written it off as a strange day. But now, 20 years later, that room was speaking back. Desperate for answers, Daniel found his way to a public library late that night. The internet was safer here. No personal logins, no tracking. He searched for anything on Project Northwoods beyond. The publicly declassified documents. What he found chilled him. An anonymous forum thread titled, "Northwoods Never Died, It Evolved." The posts were scattered, cryptic. References to MK Ultra's second wave, to untraceable field tests on civilian targets, to facilities disguised as memory assessment labs. A user named 119 Echo had posted dozens of times over the past decade, then suddenly stopped in 2020. One of their last messages read, "They never stopped. If you were taken once, you're never really free. You forget, they make sure you forget, but the body remembers. Watch your mirrors, they come in twos." Daniel's hands trembled. He clicked the username, all posts, deleted. The screen flickered. Then, the library's power cut out. In the darkness, he felt a presence. A shadow passed behind the bookshelf. Then another. He bolted for the exit. But outside, the city looked wrong. There were no cars on the street, no people, no sound. The skyline seemed warped, buildings out of place, colors slightly off, like a memory reconstructed imperfectly. He looked around, realizing in that moment they hadn't taken the briefcase, they'd taken reality, and now he was stuck in a version of the world that wasn't real. Or maybe it was. Maybe this was the real world, and everything else had been part of the program. Daniel wandered the empty streets for what felt like hours. Time no longer worked properly. There was no sun, no moon, just an eternal twilight that soaked the city in sickly grey light. Storefronts had signs in languages that shifted when he looked too long. Billboards showed his face in black and white, smiling. Behind him always, 2 blurred men in suits. He began to question whether he had ever left room 119 at all. Maybe the moment he opened that briefcase in the Florida hotel, the program reactivated. Maybe that dossier wasn't abandoned. It was planted. A trigger, a restart button. But something inside him refused to give up. Some part of his mind, the part they hadn't fully erased, kept whispering, "Find the others." That's when he heard the voice. It came from a flickering payphone on the corner of an empty street. It rang once, just once, Daniel answered. The voice on the other end was gravelly, distorted. It said only 4 words. "They're hiding in Kansas." 3 days later, Daniel arrived in a nowhere town in western Kansas. The kind of place not even Google bothered to update. He found the old grain silo exactly where the voice had said it would be. It was rusted, sealed with chain, and covered in faded military stenciling. Property of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Do not enter. He entered. Inside, deep underground, hidden behind false walls and rusted ladders, Daniel found them. People, dozens of them, eyes hollow, movements slow, like they had been pulled from some dream state and dropped here. One woman looked up at him, her voice cracked with rusted speech. "You saw the file, didn't you?" she asked. "That's how it starts." Daniel nodded, shaking. They were survivors, former volunteers, people taken during black budget programs, used for experiments and dumped back into society with rewired memories. Most lived normal lives until something, a phrase or an image woke them up. And when that happened, the program came for them again. They called it Northwoods, one of the men whispered. But it never ended. It just changed names. Suddenly, alarms blared, not outside, inside their minds. They all heard it at once, a low mechanical tone, like a dying dial-up modem inside their skulls. The sound that meant they had been located. The shadows returned first, figures in black, blurred at the edges, moving too fast and too wrong to be human. Some tried to run, others froze, weeping. Daniel stood still, and as the first figure approached him, it leaned close, pressing its face to his, and said in a voice made of static, "You should have stayed asleep." That was the last known record of Daniel Langston. Days later, a fire consumed the silo. No survivors were found, no trace of the people who lived below. No official report was released. The government stated the explosion was caused by methane, gas from abandoned agricultural waste. But some still hear the signal, some still see strange men in suits watching from parked sedans, and some say Room 119 is still active, hidden behind locked doors in forgotten federal buildings, waiting for its next volunteer. Because Project Northwoods never ended, it simply learned how to disappear.